Before the pyramids rose from the desert, before Stonehenge cast its shadow across the earth, before the first cities, the first kingdoms, the first written prayers, there was a hill in southeastern Turkey where humanity may have awakened to something greater than survival. Göbekli Tepe. A place so ancient, so improbable, it does not merely challenge history, it shakes it. At first glance, it seems almost unreal, a silent rise of land beneath a vast Anatolian sky, winds moving across dry grass, sunlight burning over stone older than memory. And then, from the soil, the impossible emerges, massive T-shaped pillars carved from living rock, standing in circles like the remains of a sacred drama whose meaning has been buried for 12,000 years. They are not crude remnants of a primitive world. They are monumental, deliberate, beautiful, towering sentinels etched with foxes, serpents, vultures, boars, and symbols that seem to pulse with a forgotten language of power, death, and the cosmos. This is not the story of a ruined temple. This is the story of a revelation. Because Göbekli Tepe was built at a time when, according to everything we thought we knew, it should never have existed. Its creators lived before pottery, before metal tools, before the wheel, before the rise of organized civilization. They were supposed to be scattered hunter-gatherers, moving with the seasons, surviving from day to day. And yet here, on this lonely ridge, they raised stone pillars weighing tons. They shaped sacred enclosures with astonishing precision. They gathered, envisioned, carved, transported, and built on a scale that feels less like survival and more like purpose. It forces a question as thrilling as it is unsettling. What if civilization did not begin with the city? What if it began with belief? What if the first great human project was not a wall, a farm, or a throne, but a sanctuary? And that is where Göbekli Tepe becomes more than archaeology. It becomes a mirror held up to the origins of the human soul. These stones suggest that long before empires sought power, long before nations drew borders, long before history recorded kings and conquests, human beings were already reaching beyond the visible world, toward ritual, toward meaning, toward the terrifying and beautiful possibility that existence was part of something larger, unseen, eternal. But the deeper we look, the stranger it becomes. Why was this place built here? What did these towering pillars represent? Ancestors? Gods? Cosmic beings? Guardians between life and death? Why are so many of the carvings charged with tension, predators, scavengers, creatures of fear and transformation? Why does the site feel less like a celebration of life, and more like an encounter with the sacred edge of mortality itself? And perhaps most haunting of all, why was it buried? Not destroyed by war. Not abandoned to collapse, buried intentionally, layer by layer, as if the people who raised it chose to hide it from the future. As if they were sealing away not just stone, but knowledge, a memory, a warning, a truth too important to leave exposed beneath the open sky. Modern science can measure the age of the pillars. It can map the enclosures, analyze the carvings, trace the quarry marks in the stone. But science, for all its brilliance, still stands in the shadow of the same mystery. How did people standing at the dawn of civilization create something so symbolically rich, so architecturally ambitious, so spiritually immense? Göbekli Tepe is not simply old. It is origin-level old. A monument from the threshold of human consciousness. A place where myth and evidence collide. Where history stops feeling linear and begins to feel like a buried labyrinth. It whispers that the first chapters of our story were not simple, not small, not primitive. They were vast, visionary, and perhaps far more mysterious than we have ever dared to imagine. Because on this windswept hill in Turkey, humanity did not just leave behind stones. It left behind a question. And that question is bigger than any temple, older than any empire, and more haunting than time itself. What, exactly, were we becoming when we built Göbekli Tepe?